Sì. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Marco Giardino from Italy, and I'm going to present an international program of exchange between students to Europe and Canada. And I will start my presentation with a story about climate change and effects on mountains. I'm a geologist. I have my geological map here, and I'm used to work in the field to collect data about the effect of climate change. And collecting data on climate change has to be done in the field, and eventually in the Alps it is possible to feel the climate change by looking at glacier and also to mountain. This is the true mountain in the Alps, in the Mont Blanc area, and the instability of this area is answered by climate change. And also it is important not only look at the effects and eventually to So I had the possibility to go to Canada for 1 year to work at Simon Fraser University, and when I was there I realized that it is not only a matter of climate change. Natural hazard and risk in mountain areas has to be related to the dimension, to scale of our field studies. So I used to work in the Pacific coast, in the coast mountain belt, and there I realized that the dimensions are very different from Europe. And so I had to realize that it's not only a matter of dimension, of scale, but also of human content. And in the same area, in the same dimension area, when I used to work in Canada, there were 200,000 people, and there is 30 million people living, so the effects of natural hazards are very different. And eventually we can compare the two approaches from Canada and Europe in order to develop a new approach to natural hazard and risk studies in the Alps. So I had the possibility to have the help by Massimo, which is involved in social studies, and eventually with Massimo and John Clegg, which is a geologist at Simon Fraser University, I had the possibility to appreciate the differences. So just for a joke, I realized that in Canada I was able to meet real birds, and in Europe, in Bosnia, they are only models, and eventually in the biosphere in the Canadian side, in British Columbia, are beautiful forests like this one, and in Bosnia and in Europe there are much more inhabitants in the forest. And sometimes the problem is that we have to face not only natural risk, also anthropogenic one, and eventually we had the possibility to feel that in Bosnian forest the landslides are less dangerous than mines. So for all this we realized that there is an important component in risk in Europe is related to population and the density of population. This is a view of natural risk related to the high density population in the Mediterranean area. And so just because I am a geologist I could compare this with the geological factors, and geological factors in the Mediterranean area are mostly related to geotectonics, to seismotectonics, to earthquake, and this is the earthquake distribution of magnitude over 4 in the Mediterranean area, and you can see by this distribution of earthquake that eventually sometimes area like Geneva, Western Alps are not so hazardous like other area like Abruzzo, Central Apennines. So in that area with an earthquake, we had a very important earthquake during 2008 and 2009, and I compared the effects of seismic activity in the Mediterranean area with respect to the British Columbia, Pacific coast, and we realized that the effects of very small earthquakes like the Aquila 1, which was in 2009, and the magnitude 6 earthquake, the effects on the population were mostly related to the poor condition of buildings and eventually to the old age of buildings. So based on this preface, in the University of British Columbia and the University of Torino and other Canadian and European universities, we realized that we were facing different approaches to natural hazard and risk. And so we started thinking that we had to work with these ingredients for having a more resilient society. And so we have to insert in our courses at university concepts like partnership, better didactic activities, organizational framework, natural hazard research to be enhanced, enhancing also student education, but also we have to integrate the traditional research like field survey, geological approach with geomatic techniques. So based on these, we started a cooperation, and so the cooperation is named Enhancing International Competence in Natural Hazard Research, and the university involved are from the European side, the University of Torino, Université de Savoie, University of Bologna, and then the University of Athens. And on the other side, in Canada, we have the University of Simon Fraser University, UBC, and Queen's University, Ontario. So based on this partnership, we had to face also the support of our studies, and we involved industrial partners like TRA company, which is a remote sensing company, or MDA Canada, McDonald, the Twitter associated research company, and also governmental bodies like the Natural Resources Canada or the Geological and Regional Survey in Italy. So we have the possibility to have supporting organization, and this supporting organization made our project possible. So we started to improve knowledge and skill in assessment and management of natural hazard and risk in mountain regions by supporting mobility between earth science graduates in Canada and Europe, and field training by having activities which was sponsored by industry and public research partners. So we had also the possibility to improve the skills by receiving software and hardware from those companies and having our technician more involved in the development of these techniques. So basically, the first goal of our activities was to have research and documentation in order to organize and recognize field studies in our regions, and preparing problem-based learning units. So we started looking at landslide and earthquake effects, having those like live laboratory for having students dealing with this problem. So we had courses from the higher level, and also we had grad theses developed in both Europe and Canada, and also we have to face the recognition of these activities, and so we have to accredit our activities by normal vetting and approval processes in the participating universities. So basically, I can give you some examples of these activities. The first year we have our summer school. There were 10 students between Canada and Europe joined this first summer school. We were in the Mont Blanc Massif, and we were working on impacts of climate change on natural hazard in high mountains. So we looked at the approach that governmental bodies has, and also we work with technicians by monitoring natural hazard in the Mont Blanc. And then we moved to Canada, so we have in the coast and Cordillera ranges of Canada, we have another course, and so we were facing catastrophic road slope failures, and eventually we failed to field directly one of these because just 1 week before we were in Canada, there was the Mount Meager disaster. So in this creek near Pemberton, in the coast range, there was the second largest rock avalanche occurred in this area. The Pemberton Valley and the Lilloth Valley were blocked by this huge landslide. So we had the possibility to work on a very fresh case studies. And so this is a field trip we had from the British Columbia to Alberta, and this is the location. So we have a very strong contact with the territorial agency and the possibility to work on also on all cases, all case studies. So we have the possibility to compare the very fresh landslide near the Pemberton area to the open slide, which is another catastrophic rock avalanches. And so we had the possibility to experience field survey by using mapping tools, software in the area, and having the possibility to appreciate the model of this landslide. So we did this with different natural hazards, also flooding in the area, and those flooding are related to climate change, eventually related to glacial lake outburst floods, and like Yokwalp cycles, dike floods, and so we had to face the more hazardous area in the mountain of British Columbia with respect to this kind of natural hazard. And also we had a look to volcanism and earthquakes, which is mostly related to the endogenetic processes in the British Columbia, but they are very still important in terms of natural hazard risk. So by analyzing this kind of natural hazard, we also had the possibility to show what kind of mitigation strategies are developed along road, and also by government having hazard inventory. So basically we were experiencing our European approach, which is much more related to the history of managing risk, and we offer this kind of a culture to people that eventually are starting now to develop new roads, new buildings in area that were natural since the last few centuries. And by doing this, we were supported by technologies and eventually geomatic tools. This is a laser scanner, and with this laser scanner we could have images of landslide and stable slopes, and eventually to map with GIS and offer to governmental bodies our view of area involved in landslides and eventually area which are prone to risk related to landslides. So those technical skills, like GIS mapping, has been developed during our courses. And the last point of our activity is how to disseminate and implement our activities. Basically, our project has been disseminated by meeting people during our field trip, showing to universities which are not involved yet in our program but will be in the future, and later to show also to governmental bodies how we can face natural hazard and risk in mountains, and this will help also to support our project in the future. So basically we can conclude our talking about our project. This is the contact point. I'm Marco Giardino, and this is my mail. We have a website where you can fill and have information about our project, www.geomatics.unito.it, and this is my presentation, and if you have some questions, please feel free to ask me. Thanks.
Questions?
Questions?
1 minute.
My name is Fuad Bedimrat. This is more a comment than a question. This is very good work, and it's very unfortunate that it's only EU, Canada, and nobody from the developing world really can benefit from this. I don't know if there is a possibility. I know within the EU programs there is the possibility to incorporate, people at least from the Mediterranean or from the South as partners. And it's really unfortunate that, good scientists from the developing worlds cannot be part of programs like this. Just a comment.
No, I can tell you this is supported by the European community. You can see a bilateral cooperation with the industrialized countries. Sorry about this, but I started talking with the EU agency about developing countries, and eventually I got in contact with other universities through the world, so we are preparing an international master and within the framework of the Erasmus Mundus program, which is also possible with other countries. And I first started with the Tripura University, which is near Bangladesh, which is in India, but is very involved in working in other kind of environment rather than in these industrialized countries. Thank you for that.